All right, lesson 2. Here we are. We're going to create the smaller smaller elements in our animation here. Starting, we have the elements that we created in the last lesson. We've got a little bit of shadow, a little bit of depth, a little bit of basically above and beyond Illustrator vector look going on right now. So let's put some detail on these. First, let's address the main Reddit. According to our storyboard, let's address the main Reddit background. For this, let's throw the Reddit logo on. You can reference the Reddit logo. I saved it before during research, and hopefully you did too. All right, so now that I brought this logo in, I'm actually going to hit Command 0. It's going to center up in the window here. You'll notice that it goes behind the toolbars right here. It's annoying. So what I like to do is take this window and turn it into a full screen app here. So I'm going to hit F on the keyboard. Nothing fancy, just F. And that's going to give me the ability to, you can see how it's gone all the way to edges here. It's going to give me the ability to move around and zoom out. All right, so here we are with the Reddit. Just added it in. Let's turn this into a vector by going to Image Trace. There's nothing too complex here. Image Trace gives you black and white. I'm going to open up the options and make sure that I click Ignore White, and then also bump it up to 3 colors. It's running black and white right now. Bump it up to 3 colors so that when we create the final product, we get those red eyes. Looks like the curves and everything are pretty good. I'm just going to adjust the paths, put some more paths in there, see what that looks like. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, I'm not going to adjust the corners. Noise is fine. Everything seems to be fine. I'm going to expand this. There we go. And I'm actually going to double click to go into this group and remove some of this extra stuff you have around. When tracing objects, it's going to give you this, normally would be white, it's going to give you this box. Make sure to get rid of that if you want to be able to center your objects, center your group, or use any of the other alignment tools. Here we go. So since this box is centered, I'm going to center this in the screen and shrink this down just a little bit with the scale tool. Okay. Now we did lose some of the white because I selected Ignore White. I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to change this empty in here into white and these other ones as well. And that will give us the distinctive Reddit robot. I'm using the arrow tool, the direct select arrow tool, to select the shape that is the inside of these shapes. Remember that when you do an image trace in Illustrator, unless you specify that you want to, these are not strokes. You can specify you want to have them Illustrator guess the strokes, but these are actually shapes. So this is in itself one shape. And on the inside of it is the shape that we told it to leave transparent. The oval that makes up the face here, we're going to change that back to white. It's very quick to undo what we just did with ignoring white in the image tracer. I'm holding Shift, of course, to select more than one path. And as long as I select part of the path of these inner empty items, it will apply the color that I give it to the entire fill. All right, so that looks pretty good. This logo and icon looks very Reddit friendly. It looks incredibly plain. There's no gradient, there's no nothing fancy about it. Let's add a little bit of detail and make it look like it came out of Illustrator with someone who knows what they were doing. I'm going to go up to the effects menu, and I love to add drop shadows. However, I am not a drop shadow addict who always, however, I'm not a drop shadow addict who likes to make everything look the same. I try to use the drop shadow as a tool rather than as a shadow all the time. You'll see that this is a 0 distance drop shadow. It's very generically placed. Let's actually take it and open up the preferences again. We'll bump the opacity at normal. We'll bump the opacity back up to 100. And change the color to a little bit off-white. I want to make these things stand out. If you're familiar with HDR photography, you'll know that an image can be manipulated so that, or sharpening, for instance, HDR and sharpening, an image can be manipulated so that around dark edges, if you lighten it up a little bit, things stand out, and they tend to look a little bit digital, a little fancier, a little off reality, and a little special. So I'm going to bump the blur here up to 15 and see what we get. I'm going to try and change this white to be a little bluer. The way I'm going to do that is instead of changing the color to blue, I'm going to go to the blend mode and change to soft light, preview, oh, a little too dim, hard light. Not as bad. You can see that it took on that bluer hue. It feels like it matches better. It's not too bad. Let's try screen. About the same. Okay, we'll leave it like that. Moving on to our subreddits. We have one. We need to create two more. I'm going to hold down. This is a nice little shortcut. I'm going to hold down Alt as I click and drag on this shape. Normally you click and drag a shape, it moves. If you hold down Alt when it's selected, you will create a duplicate of that shape. So if I let go, you see I have two of the same shape now. I'm going to create two more artboards that are identical to the shape that I've already created. And actually, since this shape is going to be duplicated itself, and this artboard is also going to be duplicated, I'm going to go Shift-O, open up the artboard preferences, and do the same trick with Alt, except for I'm going to be using the artboard as my original item. So now if I click and drag, you'll see I get the exact same artboard, again, with the exact same shape on it. Now I have three subreddits. To modify this, let's go in, zoom in on the first one, and let's add some text. We will simply, for the sake of ease, call it subreddit 1. I'm going to select all of that, Command A, Control A if you're on Windows, and go over to the text tool, which doesn't seem to be anywhere over here. So I'm going to do, make sure that I am out of this text bubble, and then hit Command T. That will bring up your character palette. Command T is an incredibly fun, it's fun to me because it's an incredibly useful shortcut. Double-clicking character, it's going to give me more options. That's a nice thing in Illustrator that it took me a little bit to find out, but a lot of these you will be given only some options. A lot of tabs will only give you some options until you double-click them to give you more. They can also be, oh, okay. Okay, so where you can see we're at 12. Rather than bumping this up individually number by number, I'm going to go down and scale the item up. All right, we have subreddit 1. And if we look to match the style of our project, let's try and mimic this font. Let's try and find a system font or go to a website to find a font that matches the non-serif, meaning no decorations on the end of the letters, and something that's rounded, something that's bubbly, cartoony, but yet it holds its, the aesthetic, it holds its own. It's solid. There's nothing superfluous about this, and there's no, these letters hold their own. Let's go here. We're going to close the character palette. Actually, we're not. We're going to keep the character palette open. Let's go to the character palette, and let's search through our fonts here. You'll notice that all the fonts are previewing. Let's make them a little bit bigger. It's a little bit easier to surf through our fonts when they're a little bit bigger. We can do that. We can do that by going to our preferences. Go down to type. Font preview, it gives you a size. Let's bump that up to large. It's going to give you fewer options because fewer options will fit on the screen, but you can see they're a little bit bigger, and honestly, it gives me a better sense of the feel of each font as we go. Choosing fonts is fun. Let's make it fun. All right, for my font, I chose Arial Rounded MT Bold. As you can see, it matches Reddit pretty well. Let's just go with this one. All right, now I'm going to shrink this down a tiny bit to fit in the box, and then of course, I'm going to copy it over to the other two subreddits that we're going to animate out. However, before we move over, one way to differentiate it from the main Reddit we have here with the black text would be, because this is darker, I can take it and make it white text. It's going to stand out, but it's going to feel a little different, a little, hopefully less significant. I'm going to make the shadow here black and then turn on the color burn. And actually, I'm not going to make it black, I'm going to make it a very dark gray. There, you get not necessarily the Illustrator look, but it's still very clean, very vector looking. And now we can copy it over to the other two. I'm centering these guys up. and we should be good to go. So for this lesson, we went through and created the smaller bits that go on top of the foundational elements we'd already made. Your to-do for this lesson is to create the smaller, more decorative items.